Hey, I'm Kenneth Wajda. I'm a professional photographer here in Colorado. Welcome to another one of my photo chats. So today I'm going to talk about Ilford HP5. So this is a film that I use exclusively for my black and white work. And I'll tell you why. Because as much as I love Kodak Tri-X, which I do, it's more expensive. And when it dries, it doesn't dry flat. It dries curled. And when it dries curled, it's harder for me to scan. And I need to be able to scan it easily, and I like a flat negative. HP5 dries, I'm just hanging it to dry, it dries flat. And that's why I use HP5. And I also love the look of it, and I'm also very familiar with it. When I go out and do street portraits, I'm always shooting at a 2/50th of a second with a Rolleiflex. And then I'm looking for what aperture will work with that shutter speed, because I want to make sure I'm holding that camera still enough to capture their face in full sharpness. When I work, I mostly am shooting between f4 and f8. I'm usually taking them into the shade. When you take people in the shade in black and white, 250 f4 to f8 is typically the exposure. Later in the day, it's closer to 4. Midday, it's closer to 8. The intensity is different. I use a light meter. I've often been a person who just guesses exposure. When I talked about my Longmont Lake project a few years ago, I shot everything at 250 f11 because it was full sun in midday. But because I'm going out and I'm shooting in times when it's a little bit getting to be dusk, the sunlight is low, it's not necessarily sunny 16 when the sun is low in the sky, so then I use a light meter. I can do a quick reading and I can say, okay, 250, 2.8 in here, ready to go. And then I tend to open up a little bit. I always overexpose by a half a stop to a stop. I want a little more contrast. I want a dense negative. I want a negative that is full enough that I can get a photograph out. And I don't want a thin negative. I never want to risk too little on that negative, not enough density, and my blacks won't be rich. So if it says 250 at 5.6, I'm probably shooting a 250 at a 4.56 split. If it says 250 at 8, I'm probably shooting between 5.6 and 8. And one simple reading in the shade will give you an accurate reading, and then a little bit of overexposure gives you the extra contrast that makes it have a little bit more pop and guarantees I'm getting a dense negative, plenty to work with. So that's a real simple explanation. You could use sunny 16. In full sun, it works 100% of the time. I often have worked without a meter because this project is important to me. Not that anything else isn't, but because this is especially important to me, and because I've been going out at unusual times late in the afternoon where dusk is a little bit harder to predict than backlit in 1 o'clock light, I'm using a meter. If I didn't have a meter, 1 o'clock I can go stand in the shade of a building downtown Denver or Boulder, and I know I can shoot a 250 f8 and get a photo. But I don't mind using that meter because it's quick. It also adds to the illusion. I'm walking with a camera, I have a light meter around my neck. It looks like this is a photographer who knows what they're doing. It's part of the sell of may I make your portrait. And the meter helps me know that I'm going to be right on with my exposures. And you can use a phone app, but pulling out a phone sometimes makes a distance. People think you're checking your phone. Oh no, I'm just checking the light, but it looks like you're checking your phone. This is instant, it's right in front of me. An incident light meter, you put this in the same light as the person. So I'm literally holding it right in front of them with the dome facing out. A reflected light meter, you can point it at things in the distance or point it at scenes, but I don't use a reflected light meter. I like incident light meters because I can put it in the same light that my subject is in. I'm working always within 3 or 4 feet. I'm right with them. I have access to reach in and find out what the light is right next to them. That's my way. Ilford HP5, big shout out to Ilford. They do so much great work, and I'm so happy to be able to use their black and white film and make that my film of choice. All right, that's Ace Photography Talk. Hey, if you're enjoying this, hit the subscribe button. If you can support, hit the Patreon. Thanks to all my supporters. I appreciate you. I'll be back next week. We'll talk more photography. As always, here's the good light.